Now, for the first panel discussion of the day, I would like to invite our Dean, Professor K.P. Lee, Professor Don Norman, as well as Dr. Hasegawa, to join me on the stage for some exchanges.
While we set up, let me tell you a problem I have. Every so often I take out my phone and I do things with it, and I'm so afraid that everybody will say, he's doing his email. But it's interesting that you get a message when I take out the phone. That is, you interpret something. But if you look at my phone, you can see I'm adjusting my hearing aid. So I'm trying to listen better by taking out my phone and adjusting the hearing aid, but it makes the audience think, or the speaker think, I'm not paying attention. But there's actually some depth in that observation, because we always interpret behavior. When we see behavior, we interpret it. We have no choice. That's the way the mind works. And here's a case where I hate taking out my cell phone to adjust my hearing aid because I know it sends the wrong message.
Right. Already a lot has been said, and as I said earlier on during the introduction, it's quite daunting to sit amongst these individuals on the stage, because I think everyone, with all this experience and all this knowledge, the real question of why we are here and how we project a future vision. How this will work, it's really an open floor. I have certain questions, but we will also take questions from the floor as well as online. So I'm trying to basically keep 3 balls in the air at the same time. So if I drop one, let's just see how it goes. Does anyone want to start by saying anything on something they've seen or heard this morning by the others? No. I know. But I always like to ask this because I think it's important. So what I've started making notes, which is actually quite interesting. But it feels to me we are preaching to the choir, to be really honest. The problems we are outlining, the frameworks we are sketching, may be new to some, but for many of us, we've been dealing with this for quite a long time. The real question for me is, how do we convince others outside of our discipline, quote unquote, outside of design, that this is a way to go? Because there's a lot of competing rationalities. I don't know if you know, but universities, when they profile programs and when they set agendas, there's always a question of where do we position ourselves? What's the benchmark? How does this relate to how others are doing something? We've now seen it in our discipline, but we've also now seen it in example, in our university, they've now started an architecture program. And the real question was, should it be within or outside of design? And that conversation is a tough one, because if you try and convince a mechanical engineer on what a studio education model looks like, it means you really have to take that person into the studio. And I had that aha moment 2 weeks ago, which was very interesting. That you can see, oh, this is what they've been talking about all along. But my question to you as a panel, how do we convince others that this is something that is viable?
I think that's the wrong question. I think the enemy is the research university and the power that the research universities have had in the world, where now every university wants to be a research university. And how do research universities, how do they rate themselves? They rate themselves by publications in specialized journals that are highly refereed. So I like to tell my friends that if I save 1,000 lives, my friends at the university say, yeah, that's nice. If I get a paper published in Nature magazine, I get promoted. And so a field that's really a field which is a profession, which is like architecture, like business, like design, doesn't get recognized. In fact, my university refused to have a design department, refused to have an architecture department, refused to have a business department for years and years and years and years, because that's not really a university. That's not really academic, because they actually do things of value, and that's not what academics is about. Academics is about defining the theories and so on, being specialists, because it requires a specialty. Now, personally, I think that the university should change, because it's the generalists and the ones who are actually professions and doing things in the world that make the big difference. We need the specialties, absolutely, but we also need the other people, the people who do things. But the university, even when the university professors and executives agree with me, they say, but we don't know how to evaluate the value of the professions, and that's the problem. And so we are not respected within the universities because we don't fit their model.
Absolutely correct. And
in that sense, I'd agree. I mean, it's why I said I think universities, if you scratch the surface, look like factories. That's the, volume, not quality. Don't know the difference. But I think, and that's partly why I'd quite like to see the infrastructure of universities change. The other way of asking that question, though, and I think this is where impact has been really powerful, is rather than ask about the discipline, ask about what do you want to change in the world. And actually, maybe you need to define the university by what it's going to change in the world. And the reason I think that PolyU's strategy is interesting is that it's started to make that move. It's a long way off, but the fact that it's gone out into the world and said, actually, we're going to work with industries in places, mainly in mainland China, but it could be wider. You could actually say, well, let's think about this. We've got a university that's a university that's now in a city that does ceramics brilliantly. So they're going to work with ceramicists in that city to see what the research should be that they need in order to make ceramics better. So I think there is something in the transdisciplinary world debate, but it actually means you have to ask a different question. And research, I think, has got stuck in its own bubble. And we certainly promote people, and Don's right, we promote people for the paper in Nature, not that you made any difference in the world whatsoever. And actually, the reason impact is so important, irritating though it may be to lots of people who are trying to get promoted, is actually the most important thing that's happened in institutions to change them. It's going to take a long time, though, because those structures are so embedded in the world. And that's why my cruise ship is a way of escaping from that, in order that, when people get off a cruise ship, they don't go shopping. They get off a cruise ship to do something useful. And then they get back on it with that knowledge and take it somewhere else. And if that industry goes around the world, that could make far more difference than we're doing at the moment.
Let me share my experience.
it's on.
Okay. I think also when I was young, I'm still young faculty members in my previous university. We are quite unique discipline, design, and all other discipline is very engineering, serious scientific, and so on. And we always said we have kind of design discipline. We have kind of a tendency to think we can do everything. Okay, and we are almighty person, and all the science people, they do just experiments, engineering people, and so on. But when president create a new interdisciplinary project all together, including design, computer science, mechanical engineering, all together, for solving big social issues. That's where I learned who I am. Okay, that's where other people learn. That's what design is about. Okay, before that, in the beginning, computer science professor approached me that KP, can you do some PowerPoint for me? Your nice slide and so on, so on. And engineers, I learned that they don't care what the problem they will solve. They care only how does it work. Okay, does it work or not? Okay, and so completely different. Okay, but designers somehow we have kind of question. Why do we need that design? Okay, why that is something? Okay, then quickly, synthesize some solution and do it together. So analytic, synthetic together, putting together. So oh my God, this is our unique, really competency compared to other engineers, scientists, and so on, so on. Although that kind of our core competencies is now swaying. Because all the engineers, they attend the design thinking workshop 2 days and I'm done, okay? I'm also, I can do also what you do, okay? Yeah. So we need to really, the forecasting future, there are some way you analyze what have you been doing and you're forecasting in a way of the projection and very stable way. But in this disruptive future, I think the same. What we need is just creating many different things, whatever do, okay? See, is it working or not? What makes that working, okay? So I think that is our designers, we need to really do not be afraid of working with others and creating something to see who I am, to learn what others can do. So that I think that's the way we convince others and convince myself as well. Okay.
Dr. Hasegawa, I think this is a perfect moment for you to also share your experience between industry and academia.
Yeah, from my industry experience, so I have never convinced other one. Yeah, so that's not my problem. So for me, it's not problem. So because you said outside people, so they have their language, so they have their confidence or they have their business, and we have. I'm believing design, and I have my language. So yeah, there is two languages. So that's the fact. And I know about human-centered design approaches, so I adapt human-centered design approach to other one. So what they are thinking, what their context, what they want to do, and I adapt my opinion to their context. So that's fine for me. Yeah. So I worked for many industries. I mean the mobile industries and information industry and the pharmacy. So all of them have their own languages or their own philosophy or their own context. So yeah, design is our language, and I believe, and I think that is a very good way to explore the future. I want to other one to understand that my philosophy, so that I use their language to explain what I'm thinking, and so I think it worked. Yeah, that is my industrial experience.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the floor? Yes.
So I've seen a lot of people around me whenever they try to associate computer science and art, they always think to generative AI. So like when it comes to narrative creating, narrative writing, you say, okay, so ChatGPT write me a story, something, or ChatGPT generate me an image or something. And that causes a phenomenon I've seen is a lot of artwork, a lot of content, when it is labeled with AI generated, people always have a stereotype saying this is a low quality or a lazy artwork or lazy content. And I'm thinking, how can we go beyond that? So instead of just prompting and generating content, is there a much more creative way to use generative AI in designing and producing content? Thank you.
That's a very specific question. Anyone like to respond?
The question was, with the rise of generative AI, how do we use it in a way, I guess, that uses our skills and our knowledge to create things, not just to always use AI because, well, does that sort of capture what you said?
Yes, how to actually create something.
How do we actually
create something meaningful with the assistant, with AI?
How do we do something meaningful?
Something meaningful, something that actually values, even with the help of AI.
Let me make a couple comments. First of all, I think you have to remember that the generative AI is very young. It's only a few years. It usually takes 5 to 10 years before, first of all, the technology reaches a more useful and better stage. And second of all, for people like us, for the world to learn how to understand it and use it. And let me give you the example of photography. When photography first came out, it caused great fear and anxiety among artists. But because what did artists mostly do? They painted pictures of people, and they painted landscapes, and they were actually trying to be as realistic as possible in everything they did, and here the camera took over. And so there was really a lot of fear. But what happened eventually was that the artists said, well, basically, let's leave the portraits to the camera, let's leave landscapes to the camera, but let's in fact expand what we're doing. They didn't do this deliberately. I mean, they didn't say it that way. But what happened was that art changed dramatically. We started getting impressionistic paintings, for example. People were demonstrating their emotions. They were trying to create an emotional feeling in everybody else. Didn't have to be realistic. So that they invented all new ways of doing art that were much more creative and much more interesting. And then when they came back to portraiture, they didn't worry about making it very accurate in every detail. They tried to capture the essence of the person in their portrait by actually distorting what the person looked like to make it feel like you understood the person. So I see that that's going to happen with us too. As we learn to use it, we'll learn that it can do lots of things. Yeah, I can make these all, but you know, everything looks like it's generated by an AI system, including the text. So I use it to give me ideas. The other day I actually I was curious, and I had it write the article for me. And it was horrible. But I can use it to give me the ideas because, look, it knows everything in the world. And when I'm doing something and I'm not sure about a particular item, I can ask it. When I give a prompt, I give it like a 500-word story or even a 1,000-word story explaining who I am, why I want it, what I'm going to do with it, and what I already know. And it gives me really good information, which I then use in my own particular way. And I think it's going to take a number of years before we all discover how to do this.
Might be easier. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, art, for example, is about the encounter. It's about a moment. I mean, the one I did, which was just, I actually asked AI when the School of Design sent me the prompt for this day. I said, could you write me a humorous lecture on design and interdisciplinarity? And it kind of, and the thing is, AI is incredibly bad at humor. It really is bad. And it's because humor is about the moment. It's about that moment of respondent. And it came back, for those of you who know Monty Python, it came back and it said, basically, well, you could use sarcasm, litotes, bathos, wit. And you can think, that's a Monty Python line. And it's quite interesting. It is about the encounter. And we have to learn the craft of AI. And how the craft of engaging with AI, I should say. So it's actually the same as anything else. Craft is about muscle memory. It's about the encounter with the body. It's about us as a human body, how we encounter that. Art has the same process, goes through that same process. It's the encounter with the art. You can look at many pictures of art, but to look at art is an encounter. And it's a real live encounter in a moment. And so you have to kind of think about how we're going to work in that moment. And I think that humor is the best, for me, it's kind of, ask AI any joke, it's terrible. So try it.
Yeah, I think the AI, generative AI, brought to us a lot of challenges, our design education. So as soon as AI, generative AI came on the market, we School of Design formed a committee for, how can we do this? What general guideline of those things? And we analyzed all the current use of the generative AI over the design process. We found out dominantly AI, generative AI is being used for how to design in the final stage of the creating new ideas and executing designers, but still not yet in front stage of the why do we need design, what to design. So that implies us, generally speaking, we should accept that what generative AI can do much better than human being. So we shift to teach our students to generate more why to design, what to design. I think that's what our overall strategy. From my experience, when computer came on the market in design field, similarly in 1980s, the computer comes in our design field, and everybody was so shocking. Oh, computer can draw, computer can draft, and everything. So many people begin to apply the computer in Photoshop, AutoCAD, and many other things. Later on, that is too generic for design profession, design work. So they try to really customize those generic software to create what really computer-aided design tool for method. But truly, what design could survive on the new emergence of a new computer was some group of designers in Palo Alto Research Lab, Xerox Lab. They brought us something new question: how design can make make users easy to use. Okay, so they create interaction design. Okay, so ever since then, interaction design become interface design, UX design, and so on, so on. That's how design profession could survive all those things. Then for the AI, where we are, I think we are still the first stage of the whatever we bring the AI, generative AI, applying for design problem currently. But we need to really they work together. How can we customize those generic generative AI to fit into our design? Ultimately, we need to create entirely new question, new method for working with the generative AI. Okay, that's how our school is doing now. Thank you.
Please.
So actually, I was studied artificial intelligence in the end of 90s. So I got PhD in this kind of neural networks, and so that I think I know much better than other general professors and students. So actually, AI is deep learning is a kind of black box right now. So we don't understand what's happening in the AI, and so we can see the AI is they synthesize the old data inside the AI system. So that is almost the same interaction in our brain. And in general, so if we ask generative AI something, so they generate a very ordinary, very average answers. That's boring for in design context. As Dr. Norman said, I think generative AI is not just a solution maker, but a collaborator, I think. So if you ask something, they have bigger memory than humans, so they can answer the historical things or theoretical outside things. So we can learn from these. We can regard AI as a huge database, so that we can learn something from these factored data and generate higher thing. I recommend my students, and I recommend you to utilize AI to make your inspiration higher. So that's my case. Yeah.
I'd quite like to come back on that a little bit. And the reason is that AI is trained on what's gone before. And what's gone before is quite partial. And it's written, actually, mainly by men. Sorry to rub it in, but it's actually a very, very partial view. And I don't know if any of you have seen recently, there's quite a movement on LinkedIn, which has burgeoned recently, which is if I pretend to be a man, my profile goes up by about 200%. And that's what I mean about AI. They're all trained by the same process. And it's not nice, it's difficult. AI is used for screening, it's used for screening of PhD candidates, it's used for screening in jobs. The trouble is, it's biased in that sense. And one of the things we've got to start working with is actually how we manage some of that. Because we don't. It is still a black box. And I think one of the things that, if you like, concerns me about that is an awareness of understanding that what's gone in is what's generating what's coming out. And I think we need to be really sharp about where that encounter, which is the art encounter or the joke, is going to come from. Otherwise, many parts of the world and many populations will be discounted by AI.
I'd like to make a comment about that. First of all, everything you said is true, but that's not. I would not blame the generative AI system on that. I blame the technicians, the technical people, who put it together. So the training material was highly biased, and so we have to start over again and train things differently to eliminate the biases. And I believe that's going to happen in the future. But let me make an important point about the comments I was making in my presentation. The people who put it together were basically technologists. They understood technology. They did a really brilliant job of putting together the technologists. And they did not understand humanity. They did not understand ethics. They did not understand history. They did not understand all sorts of things. All they did was wonder, oh, isn't it wonderful, the little technology we've done? And so that unfortunately, there are many universities now in the world, and especially the politicians who look at universities. Why are we teaching the arts and the humanities, etc.? We ought to be teaching STEM to everybody. Well, that's what, if you teach STEM to everybody, you end up with things like today's highly biased, prejudiced AI systems. That's why we need the humanities. But I also am very optimistic that so many people recognize these deficits that that will get fixed.
I wish I believed you, John.
Well, I wish I believed in that too. I mean, that's an opinion, and I could be wrong.
Right. It also feels to me, if I need to grab hold of this opportunity, because a lot of the questions that are generated basically positions in the framework of interdisciplinarity and I'm talking about education now. I mean, I hold the profile to support the educational profile of the school, but does it mean that this interdisciplinary thinking changes by the level to which we are educating students? There seems to be a very big challenge when we talk to an undergraduate, to a taught postgraduate, and to a research student who says, I want to deal with these as challenges. How do we make these shifts? Any advice? Because I think this is really something that we will talk about a lot more in the classroom. Also the fact that in the audience we have a lot of educators. And this will be a challenge that they will encounter tomorrow.
Do you mean where do we deal with disciplinary and where do we deal with interdisciplinary?
No, it's just if we talk about interdisciplinary framework that's basically universal for all levels, how do we adjust that to the levels that we're educating? Are we having different conversations with a PhD student? Are we having another conversation with a master's student?
No, I think you have the same. I mean, it comes back to what Don said at the beginning. Do it by project. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do? Don't do it by. I mean, you know, I'm going to talk as an architect for a minute, but you know, it's architects always have to do a house in the first year. It's the wrong project. It's like how are we going to live in the future? Might be a better project, but you might have to do the mistake project. So you have to do the ugly project first. So you have to say, well, okay, I'll tell you what, guys, just go and design me a 5,000 bedroom hotel, because you won't know what one of those necessarily looks like. And you'll probably get it horribly wrong. But I think you've got to ask a question which is about what you want to achieve and think about the fields that you want to do it in. It's partly why I said, why on earth do we bore students? I'm sorry, but we bore students with things we've known for 20 years. And I think it's time that we don't educate by what we've been doing for 20 years. It's death by PowerPoint. I mean, PowerPoint didn't exist when I was educated. My education was, I think, well, Don described it differently. I'd call it benign neglect. It was a very nice form of benign neglect. It was like, go out there and sort yourself out, really, and learn for yourself and have the initiative to say, actually, I need to think about how people are going to live in the future. I don't need to think about a house. I need to know about the history of housing. And I will find that out because that's part of the driver. I think we've got very hung up on you do a discipline. You do a discipline usually to get confidence and to get some kind of community. Kind of sad in a way that we need those things to find our identity. I mean, KP was just saying, you know, I found myself when I compare myself to others. Yeah, I'm the same. I don't define myself as an architect, but architecture is rooted deep in me throughout. But I would call myself a designer. I'm not sure what kind of designer, but I kind of behave like one.
I'll make a comment that I helped organize a Future of Design education project. We wanted to change education a lot. Unfortunately, we started just as COVID started, and so it made it. I'm not happy with the result, but it was, I think, the lack of being able to get together that caused the problems. But here's a point that we made to ourselves. Ethics is very important. It's so important it should not be taught in a course. The evidence about courses is very clear, people who have studied this. Students take the course, they study in order to pass the exam, and once the exam is over, they forget everything that ever went on. And so ethics is too important to be part of a course. It ought to be integrated with everything that you're learning, all the stuff that every field ought to be talking about ethics as a normal part of the education and what you do. And I think that's consistent with what I was trying to argue about much of design and all the other fields that are going to hit design. They ought to be integrated together so that you don't think of it as separate disciplines, you think of it as this is what we have to do.
We're kind of experts we're expert joiners uppers. So we join things together. That's our job. We've got to be expert in that.
Actually, because we need specialists and we need generalists, etc., what I would like to do is I would like to teach everybody by projects in the beginning so they begin to understand the importance of all the very separate disciplines. And then those people who decide they want to actually make things or something, they will take those courses and be more generalists. And those people who decide they want to actually explore the science or the technology or the topic, doesn't have to be science or technology, it could be literature, it could be art, it could be anything. They explore it in depth, they become the specialists. But because they became the specialists after they began to understand the rich set of knowledges, I think that will make them better even at their specialty.
Yeah, I think the Gerhard answer about the understanding of the needs of interdisciplinarity in bachelor program, master program, PhD program is way different from my experience. We introduced our foundation year so that we don't have any specialism yet. So they learn a bit of everything, including computer literacy and prototyping and all those things. But all young kids who just get into university, they're really annoying that why do we need to learn this kind of unrelated things? Okay, I want to be advertising designer. Why do we? So it's quite difficult to convincing them, universal design principle, universal understanding of design, other interdisciplinary things, okay? For example, we establish service design department, specialism, reflecting on computer industry, Hong Kong, more than 90% industry service design, service industry, hotel tourism, retail, and those things. We create service design specialism in undergraduate. You know what? That's the least popular, okay? Because it's quite new, okay? And why designer need to service design? But when you go master program, service design is one of the most popular one. For PhD, of course, that more interdisciplinary things. So challenging things is that we create something undergraduate program to in a way so that they learn different aspect of design, more universal method and thought, so that they can choose what they're good at, something. But it's quite difficult to convincing them to really the needs of those interdisciplinarity and so on and so on. The one failure I did, when I come here in the final year 4, undergraduate program, everyone needs to have their own graduate work, right? Their final graduate work. So visual communication design, student design, logotype and brand identity, while product designers, they design furniture or other things. I think that's wrong. So I try to integrate specialism together to challenge a big complex system. So I call it integrated capstone. Okay, so the big system level of problems, and ask the different students from different specialism, putting them together to do this. But that failed. Nobody want to take that one. They want to do their own individual portfolio. Okay, oh, this is communication design. Okay, so this is quite challenging.
That's another fault with the universities and schooling. Because we force people to do things all by themselves. They're not allowed to do it in a group. Yet when you go out in the real world, it's all done by groups. Any project is bigger than any single person can do. And so we're training people wrong. And thank goodness I didn't have to do a portfolio when I graduated. The question was, did I understand topics? Was I, et cetera? What had I learned? Not. I think that we're emphasizing creativity too much too. I don't believe that everything has to be novel. In fact, the real novel breakthroughs are rare. They don't happen very often. And when you get out in the real world, almost everything you do is going to be improving, an incremental improvement about things that exist. And we always start, though, with a project. You have to start from scratch, and you have to do it and finish it in whatever number of weeks you have, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whereas real projects don't start from scratch, and they take 2 or 3 years. And in some projects with 20 people, 50 people, when I was at Apple, we would have 200 people on the project, because these are very, very complex things that we're trying to build today.
There's a great essay which I use a lot, and it's nothing to do with Apple, but it's called iPencil. And what it is, it's an essay about one of those pencils that's got a little bit of rubber on the top, a little bit of brass, and a pencil, a bit of lead in the middle. And it's the essay that is from the pencil's perspective. It was written in 1957. And actually, it's brilliant, because what it really points out, and it's an economics essay, by the way, but that nobody knows all the things that put a pencil together. And that's the simplest thing. I've got one in my handbag because I carry one around. It's a brilliant teaching device, but it's also a brilliant essay. And it does exactly those things. It says, actually, none of us work independently. There is no such thing as, I built a business on my own. No, you didn't. Nobody did. Because we all work collectively all the time. We are a social species. And there's no such thing as a kind of, grand hero in that. We've all come from business in that sense. I would take out every prefix to design. I would just say, will you teach people to design? Graphics, UX. I don't even know what all those things stand for. I think we have got caught in a market, which is a market system that says you need to be this to do that, you need to be this to do that. Specialism, and I think that the question is that we start with discipline and go to interdiscipline. The place you notice it most in a university is when you try and ask somebody to give you a PhD question, they don't know how to do it. And one of the things is, if you ask a PhD student what difference they want to make, they can usually tell you. But they can't give you the research question. And it's quite interesting. And I think that that's a failing of education, that it takes till you get to PhD to actually get to that point. And that's why I think it's really interesting to think through actually what it is we ask students to do. And that's why, as I say, I think Don's right. If we do things through projects, and you kind of know what the project is, I think we've got to get past that. But the market is telling us something different. So when KP has to report his numbers to the university, I know this game so well. When you report, I've got X number of students and I've recruited X and Y because they want to be fashion designers, or they want to be UX designers, or they want to be super trendy graphic designers. Actually just need to be designers. That's all. And once that happens, there's an issue of scale. And that's a different issue.
Yeah, basically I agree with you. So especially in undergrad education, I think to cultivate motivation and curiosity would be the very important thing for younger students, because design is naturally it's a very interdisciplinary thing, because so you find something problem or you find something, so you can do anything. Basically, you can do from graphic design approach or from user experience design, so you can do anything. So that is a naturally design thing. But so if you cannot find something, problem or issue, or, whatever, so you cannot start doing. So find something interesting, find something you are angry with, or you think something. Yeah, so that's very important for younger students, I think. So that we started department creative innovation 6 years ago. And our first grade students, they have to do not design work, but crafting artwork. So facing yourself and facing objects, and not problem solving, but crafting something. So we cultivate their self-abduction way of thinking, or this kind of not problem solving things we are educating. So my point is cultivate their motivation for see around the world, have a curiosity for outside your mind is a very important education for younger designer, I think.
Our time is up, but I want to say something on this. It feels, or I have a hunch, that half the conviction that has to happen even before students enter the university. It goes to the discipline, it goes to a way of working, and also that there is meaning to what we do. Whether parents like it or not, whether parents suggest choose a financial direction, and therefore my question is a little bit facetious in that way, because it already is signaling to us the convincing has to happen way earlier than what we think. And even when we get students into these various levels, it has to shift a little bit. But more to be said on that over lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your input, your discussion, your ideas. Please, can we have a round of applause for today's speakers? This concludes this morning's session. We will start again this afternoon at 2 p.m. Please join us again, and we will follow a similar format of presenter and panel discussion afterwards. See you after lunch. Thank you.